The situation with JD Vance is not that he's a failed drag queen. A lot of people, attempt to be artistic and express themselves in a certain way and then decide that's not the right fit for them. The problem with JD Vance is he has no real identity, that he is so malleable that he just contorts and twists his personality to what behooves him at that moment. And right now, the moment that we're in with JD Vance, and we are on his third name change, by the way, which is pretty telling, is that he is trying so desperately to be this cool villain. And he face plants time and time and time again. He has no riz. He was a liability on the Trump ticket. He didn't poll very well, and he wasn't Trump's first choice for VP. And but he was a favor from the oligarchs that decided to give Trump a lot of money. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk said, you've got to put our boy in there. And so they have groomed this guy. And can you imagine that you are so for sale that you will just allow anybody to program you as though you're a robot and program you to even disown the multicultural fabric that is your own family and not stand up for it? So he is face planting on the national stage right now. And this is just a sight, really. This is the Vice President of the United States. Here he is in this video. He still believes the completely disproven Facebook lie that immigrants are eating dogs and cats. Play the clip.
If you remember the big controversy about all of the migrants who came into Haiti, 20,000 immigrants, Haitian migrants in a town of 40,000 people. So you blink your eyes in Springfield, Ohio, and you wake up and literally a third of the population of your town is now Haitian immigrants.
And eating cats and dogs.
Eating cats and dogs. Now, Biden paroled those immigrants. And what did that mean? Those immigrants were now able, even if they didn't have kids, all of them were able to access housing benefits.
So this is just really breathtaking to me that in their base, the base is so locked into their own silos that they still believe this. It's never gotten to them. The information has never gotten to them that even the woman who posted that originally on Facebook has said, I was wrong. That is not true. And the fact that he uses his faith as such, at least in public, as such a anchoring position for him. And then he's so cruel about immigrants is such a problem. And leaders of this time, of course, countries have to have borders. You can't just let people come in without going through the process. Everybody agrees with that. But there needs to be a compassion and empathetic approach. And the Haitian population in Springfield, Ohio, has been a benefit to that town. It was pretty much washed up. And the laborers came in and stimulated the economy and helped Springfield, Ohio, boom. And the problem for the MAGA people with Haitians is because they're Black. If these were a bunch of French or Swedish laborers, I don't think that they would be accused of eating dogs and cats, which is just really upsetting that the President of the United States just so racistly lies like that. All right, moving along. Here he is saying that it's reasonable for people to not want their neighbors to speak a different language. Play the clip.
The house is actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house, 20 people from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen and recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second, what is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers. And the fact that we have
Okay, so this is just that horrible trope that I'm sure you've heard where people say we're going to pile up like Haitians. That's what he is referencing there, that you've got 20 people piled up, making a big ruckus with zero evidence that this is even happening. And the problem is that people in rural America and suburban America live in a really white dominated culture. A lot of them have never fallen prey to crime and have never really been around an immigrant workforce, or the ones that have. White folks, like in my socioeconomic bracket, the immigrants are their gardeners, are their housekeepers, are their home repair people. And they brag about, oh yeah, I'm going to use this immigrant because I can pay them a lot less. And they see that as a way to exploit their labor. The core of everything he's saying here is so racist. He says, on the one hand, we can have dignity for these people, but they pile into these houses and they don't speak the language. And none of this is even supported by any facts. And they are still, this has been such a shit show. And they're net positive going into the second term were their numbers on immigration. They're underwater on that now because people don't like to see little kids zip tied. People don't like to see ICE arresting people at Home Depot, slamming them to the ground. And I read a very startling stat that there are now more people in ICE custody with zero criminal record than there are people in ICE custody with a criminal record. And that should tell you everything you need to know. ICE is a white supremacist operation that is systematically going out and arresting people with an assist from the Supreme Court so that they can racially profile them, because J.D. Vance is in his white supremacist era. And prior to this, J.D. Vance had a trans roommate. We still have to mention right now that he has a wife of Indian descent and mixed race children. So I would think that he would be a compassionate voice about multiculturalism and the tricky and sometimes painful way that we need to navigate a fair and just immigration system. But no, it's all these dog whistles. All right. So then he goes over to like Ole Miss University, and he is like doing this show with Erica Kirk. All right. And they open up the questions to the people on the floor. And this woman asked J.D. Vance some very interesting questions. Pop up the tweet. A brave young woman asks J.D. Vance, when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You gave us a path and now tell us we don't belong here. Why do you have to be a Christian to be American? And I won't play the video for you because it goes on, but she brings up some really good points here. When did they decide what this number is? Because it's always been pitched, and even Republican presidents, I can go back and play the clip, that you can be, you could move to France, but you'll never be a Frenchman. You can move to Germany, but you'll never be a German. But you can move to America and you can become an American. And this has been a mantra, by a bipartisan mantra, by even conservative politicians like Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, etc. And now with this administration, that has completely changed. And the Republican positioning under the MAGA rule, the MAGA regime, is that we have too many immigrants. I don't care about the dream that we told them. This lady is here saying, I paid all the money I was supposed to pay. I did everything I was supposed to do. And now you're saying that I need to be a Christian, or I will be favored more if I am a Christian. And I want to remind everybody again, J.D. Vance's wife is of Indian descent and she's Hindu. And I think that's cool. I think at some point it tells you when J.D. Vance, when he was younger, when he thought he was gay, and then he tried to be a drag queen, and then the little smoky eye sociopath changed his name, so he's trying to find his way. He was so open-minded, and he fell in love with an Indian woman who's this brilliant lawyer, and they have these beautiful mixed race children. And then somewhere along the lines, he goes to Silicon Valley, gets bought and paid for. And he has such lack of moral clarity or moral identity for himself that now he is the ringleader in all of this racist bullshit dog whistles when he and his family are truly the face of America? Truly, like this white American guy from, Appalachia, and he ends up going to Yale, and then he marries this woman of that is born of immigrants, of Indian immigrants, and they have this mixed race family. It could be a really cool leadership story, but not for Little Smokey. Little Smokey has been bought and paid for by a bunch of psychopaths in Silicon Valley that are mining our information. They have all of our private information, and that they've decided, not that they support Trump, but they see him as a useful idiot to dismantle the Constitution. And they found somebody with absolutely no conviction and no moral courage to execute their plan. And that person is failed drag queen, little smoky-eyed sociopath, J.D. Vance. That's the guy who's executing this plan. All right, moving along. She asks J.D. Vance about his wife not being Christian. And here's what he says about that. Play the clip.
Everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we've decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will. And so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a...
Okay. So basically, it's okay for Usha to remain Hindu. And it's okay for Usha to be a woman of immigrant parents. But they often talk about this administration, that they want it to be a Christian nationalist administration. Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, straight up said he was a Christian nationalist and he wanted the United States of America to be a Christian nationalist nation. Project 2025 spells out that they want the United States to be Christian. But here you have the just absolute hypocrisy. In his private life, he has a wife who is a smart lawyer whose parents are immigrants. And it's okay for her. And it's okay for his mixed race kids. And it's okay if she wants to be Hindu. And he respects that because she has free will. But when it comes to the masses, they don't apply the same sort of grace. And I think, again, this is a short-sighted issue here. I don't know if y'all remember during the RNC, Usha talked about being a vegetarian on stage. And these are the people like Ted Cruz will say, Kamala Harris is not taking away my cheeseburger. And then like the dipshit governor from Texas is like, I'm banning beef burger, whatever that vegan burger stuff is. He's like banning it. Like that's such a tough guy. So these guys are just all hypocrites that engage in culture war bullshit to get to power so that they can fleece off the working class to feed the billionaire class. And they keep you all engaged in religion and trans people and immigrants and all this bullshit to keep your eye off the ball that all of J.D. Vance's friends, his gay friend, Peter Thiel in Silicon Valley, has groomed him to be an absolute sociopath. Now, granted, J.D. Vance was probably broken before, which set the psychological soil for him to fall prey to all of this. But all right, I'm going to leave you with this. Here's J.D. Vance, and this is the Vice President of the United States. I just to remind you of that. Here's J.D. Vance, and he thinks that UFOs could be demons. Play the clip.
Gabbard says that she believes there are aliens. Do you believe that?
You know, I don't, it's interesting. I wouldn't say that I do or don't believe it. I mean, I'm a big believer that there are things out there that we can't explain. And so if another person sees an alien, maybe I see an angel or a demon. So I'm a big believer that there are like spiritual forces working on the physical world that a lot of us don't see and a lot of us don't understand and a lot of us don't appreciate. But, you know, is it aliens or is it our guardian angel, or is it aliens or is it a not so guardian force that doesn't care about us or in fact actively wishes us harm? I don't know the answer to that question. What I try to do is I try to say my prayers. I try to be as good of a person as I can be, and I try to do a good job. And hopefully that's all I need to do.
Okay, that's fucking crazy. That is so batshit crazy. And what he is signaling here to everybody is spiritual warfare. And as a woman who grew up around all of these evangelicals, they believe this. And he's signaling to the base that I am fighting the angels and demons in the spiritual warfare. And I think a lot of these people in the MAGA administration and on the Supreme Court and in the Senate and in the House think we can do a lot of bad shit and we can abandon the Christian principles of feeding the poor, helping the marginalized, helping the sick. If we placate to the people who want to accumulate wealth, because we're going to turn this country into a Christian nationalist regime. What's so interesting about the whole thing, and I'm not a Christian, but it's my understanding that not only did Jesus Christ speak out against the accumulation of wealth and actually discussed how difficult it would be for a rich man to ascend into heaven, he also spoke out against over religiosity. He also spoke out against the people who had to be grandiose and braggadocious and prosperity gospel-esque with their religion. So in fact, this whole MAGA Christian movement, the white people I'm talking about here, is the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite of what the central character of the faith, Christianity, Jesus Christ, of what he espoused. All right, that's all we have on Lil Smokey for today. Buy our book. It's called Life is a Lazy Susan of Shit Sandwiches. I have it here. Pumps usually has it, but she's traveling today. Here it is. It's linked right below in the show notes. It's a really great read. It's the coolest book of the fall. Subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and we'll be back later with more news.